And we're live. Buenas tardes. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Uh, whew, not sure why I feel out of breath. Um, Thank you for joining me today. We are going to discuss creating a financial plan to move abroad. As many of you know, I have been living abroad for the past 5 years. I'm also a financial coach. And so I am at this intersection of travel and expat life and finances. And a question that I see quite a bit in the various online spaces is about like, well, I want to move abroad. How much money do I need? How much money should I take? And so I thought we would explore that topic today. If you're here, go ahead and say hello in the chat to let me know. I'm thankful and glad you joined us today. If you're here watching the replay, say, hey, what's up? If you've got questions on this particular topic, we will be answering those as well. That's one of the fun things about going live is you can get your answers in real time. Hey, Kenyatta and LaShawn and Joy and Dolores. Buenas tardes. Um, hey, Janelle. I feel like I just saw you over on Sheeta's stream earlier today. Um, if you are new to the channel and you're like, what is all of this about? Who is this chick? Let me introduce myself. I'm Adelia Borishade, although most people on the internet know me as Picky Girl Travels the World. I am a extremely picky eater who at least used to travel the world pre-pandemic. Now it's a little dicey. I help Black women manage their money so they can live the life of their dreams, no matter what that is. If it's travel, if it's moving abroad, if it's, starting your own, whatever it is. To do any of the things we want to do in life, we need money. And, I help women figure out their money so they can live the life of their dreams. Good afternoon, Robin and Sharon. And, I don't want to butcher this. Moho Siedlak. Sorry, I'm not good with pronunciations. Okay, so let's get down to business. And again, if you've got any questions, please chime in the just Moho. Okay, or Mojo. I'm sorry, I've been in Mexico too long. Instead of Mojo, I'm saying Mojo. I don't know. Lo siento. So we'll get down to the business at hand, which is to talk about creating your financial plan. One of the things, hey, Black Hannah, one of the things that prompted today's live, I was on Facebook yesterday in one of the many groups for potential or future expats. And this is what somebody posted, y'all. It said, y'all, I want to leave the US so bad and head to Mexico, but I don't even know where to start. I haven't saved any money to move, and I wouldn't know where to live with a 3-year-old, where to work, and it goes on and on. And, there are a lot of things in this world we can do with no money, but moving to another country is really not one of them. Unless you're being relocated by your job, that's different. I will readily admit, when I moved to China, I was being relocated by my job. So that meant they covered airfare, they covered where I stayed, they covered all of that. And liquid assets, I think I might have had $92 on me when I moved, but that's a special situation. Most of us are not choosing to move abroad that way. So I saw that post yesterday and I thought, ooh, baby, you can't move to another country with no money and no plan. So that's sort of what birthed today's conversation. Okay, so let's talk about that. As I mentioned, one of the most common questions I see is, how much money do I need to move to X country? And a lot of times those posts go unresponded to because it's really hard to give a specific dollar amount because everybody's life is different. If you have been on Rashida Dow's YouTube channel, a week or two ago, she did a video about what her cost of living is like here in Mexico City. I've also done a video like that, and I'll put a link in the description, but you would see that our cost of living is very different. Okay. So, the number that Rashida would tell somebody that they need to live in Mexico City versus the number I might tell somebody could be very different. So, asking that question, how much money do I need to move to this country? That's a hard question to answer. So I think it's more important to kind of look at what are the expenses associated with moving abroad and then make your financial plan based on that. So you know how much money you need versus how much money you currently have and how do you plan to make up the difference. So if we break the process down into the time before you leave your home country, the time you're actually in transit to your new country or your first country, if you're a digital nomad and you won't be spending more than a few months in a country, these costs would repeat themselves. And then there are the costs you have once you're on the ground. And again, if you're a digital nomad, you would repeat those costs every time you relocated to a new country, a new location. So, before I forget, because I do forget this, y'all, I have a move abroad checklist that covers not just like the financial things you need to think about, but also like what are some of the communication things, what are some of the medical things, what are some of the like paperwork documents, stuff like that. So here is a link to the move abroad checklist. And I'm trying to type and think and talk at the same time. That's hard. And I'll also put that link in the description. So, what are the expenses you would expect to encounter in that pre-move stage? Well, first of all, depending on your timeline, are you going to have to break a lease? Are you going to have to get out of a lease? Is that going to cost you money? Because that amount of money needs to go into your financial planning. If you have a home that has a mortgage on it and you don't intend to keep it while you're gone, there are the costs associated with fixing it up, getting it on the market, getting it sold. So those are costs to think about. What about your car? If you're not going to keep it, if you're not going to give it away, if it's a car that you have a note on, is it going to cost you money to get out of that? I was very fortunate when I left the US, my car was already paid for. So I went literally across the street. There was a CarMax by my apartment and talked to them. And so when it was all said and done, they cut me a check to my name. But if your car has a lien on it, how much somebody like a CarMax might give you might not be everything that covers your loan amount. So is it going to cost you money to get rid of your car? That needs to go into your financial planning. Okay. I'm looking at my notes here. Okay. Do you have debt? Now, if you have watched the video I did called the 10 money moves to make before moving abroad, and I will link this in the description, but here it is in the comments. If you've watched that video, you know how I feel about taking debt with you abroad. Now, let me interject here and point out there are people who can eliminate their debt because they are moving abroad, because their expenses will be lower in their new country. They can then funnel more money toward their debt. And so moving abroad is a way of getting rid of that debt. So I'm not talking to those people. I'm talking to the people who have kind of just gone through life thinking debt is just a part of life and we all will carry it. It's gonna be an albatross around your neck in your new country. So I strongly recommend and advocate for paying down that debt before you leave. Therefore, that money, that amount needs to be part of your financial plan to exit the US or whatever your home country is. I think a lot of times people only think about, well, what is it going to cost me to buy a plane ticket and to get an apartment? What is the cost of living in my new country? They don't really stop to think about, what is it going to cost me to get out of my old country? So if you've got debt, I think that needs to be a part of your financial plan, and eliminating as much of it as you can. Am I talking about, let's say you've got a mortgage on a house, you intend to keep the house either just long term so you have a place to stay or to generate income. Am I talking about that? No. Primarily, I'm talking about credit card debt, high interest, consumer debt. That stuff is not good. It's bad news. Okay. Now, making the move to the other country in anticipation of that, do you have the proper luggage, or is that something you need to go out and buy? It's something I had to buy, and I had not really considered this when I was planning my initial move to Honduras, because like I had luggage because I travel, but I'm team carry on. So I had this really small bag and like a backpack. I didn't have like checked bag luggage. So that was an expense that I incurred in my first move abroad. I ended up buying two. They're often called deployment bags. Sometimes they're called self-sided trunks. They are the largest bag that you can check without having oversized bag fees attached to it. I got two of those from the Container Store. I caught them on sale. And then as I got to packing things, I realized two bags was not going to be enough. So I had to spring for a third one. But, just to buy those three bags was $250, if not $300. And that was an extra $350, $300 I hadn't really considered I would need to spend in order to leave the US. Okay. I see y'all are fans of the 10 money moves to make before you move abroad video. That is also one of my most favorite videos, because I feel like that's the stuff nobody ever talks about, when you move abroad. To go along, so you got to figure out how much are you going to spend on luggage or whatever it is that you're going to pack your stuff in to get it there. Now, people are of varying opinions about how much baggage you should take with you. As many of you know, I am a minimalist, so I don't own a whole lot of stuff. And really, if it wasn't for the fabric over there and the fabric back here in this closet, I probably could get by with 2 bags, but I don't want to let go of my fabric. So that's costing me extra money when I move. Okay. Speaking of minimalism and stuff, when you leave, when you move abroad, when you become a digital nomad, are you going to keep a lot of your stuff that you can't take with you? Are you going to keep that? Are you going to leave that behind? Where are you going to store that? Are you storing it at a friend's house for free? Or are you going to get a storage unit? Y'all know I am not a fan of this, but I do realize that everybody's journey is different. So if you feel that you own things that you must keep and you must store them, you need to account for the cost of that storage and how long will it be in storage. Are you going to store it for a year, 2 years? That needs to be a part of your financial plan when you move abroad. I don't think enough people who get storage units consider what is the total cost they end up paying year after year versus the cost of the things that they're storing there. There are some things that don't have there are sentimental value. You can't put a dollar price on that. I get it, but still, if you're creating a financial plan for your move to figure out how much money you need and where you're going to get it from, I think you need to be honest about if you're going to store things, how long are you going to do that and for how much? Before you move abroad, you also need to stock up on things to take with you. So if you are on specific medications, whether or not you can get those in the countries you're going to, or how easy or difficult that will be, you may find that you need to bring a supply with you. Another popular question in many of the different move abroad groups is, like, what are the things that I have to bring? And always comes up spices, um, hair products, black hair products, because those are not the easiest to get. If you know that you are going to a country full of little people and they don't have your shoe size, they don't have your bra size, whatever, you're going to want to bring extras of those things. And if that's stuff you don't already have, you're going to incur costs in getting those. And so that has to be part of when you're figuring out how much money do I need to move, you need to include that with it. Speaking of clothing, are you going to a country where your current wardrobe will work? Or are you moving from Minnesota, but you're going to Honduras where it is hot year round? The winter, you might need a hoodie. So do you need to buy clothes specific to the environment that you're moving to? If so, that's more cost associated with that. If you're moving to Iceland or Norway, the coat that you have in the US is not going to be good enough. So you'll need to get a new one that's appropriate for that. Okay, I'm looking at the comments, make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, luggage. For me, because I had this idea, first of all, and I was just talking to one of my clients about this. When you start, getting rid of things and paring down for your move abroad, you're thinking to yourself, I don't really own that much. And then you start pulling things out of cabinets and closets and you realize there's stuff you have that you haven't been using. So you kind of, out of sight, out of mind. When I bought those 2 bags, I thought that was going to be plenty. The other thing I hadn't considered was weight. I was so concerned about how much stuff could I get in the bag. I didn't think about weight. And in case you don't know, overweight bags are expensive as hell. So as I started to put things physically in the bag and check the weight, I realized to bring what I wanted, I was going to need the additional bag. And everything that went into the bag, I had to kind of judge, is this worth what I am paying in the price of this extra bag to bring it with me? And I know for the folks who love books, that is a hard thing to let go of, especially if you prefer dead tree books, physical books. I had already made the switch to Kindle a few years before I left the US, so it wasn't that big. I had a small collection of physical books that I wasn't enthused about having to buy electronically again, but I was able to let that go. But I know if you're big on books, that's always a tough one. I have an office, have to ship. Did I sew? This is a shirt dress, and yes, I did sew this. Thank you. I'm reading. Just got my TEFL certificate right now. No bills, 100K in cash. Looking good, looking good. Okay. What about shipping containers? Any thoughts, resources? Okay. Um, for me personally, I was not bringing any furniture with me. Bringing furniture really depends on where you're going. If you're going to a tropical climate that has termites and you're bringing wood furniture that's never been treated for termites, you're shooting yourself in the foot. If you're moving to Europe where apartments are smaller and therefore all their furniture is smaller, your stuff may not fit. I had just gotten divorced a year before, so I wasn't overly attached to anything physical, any of the furniture I owned. So I didn't bring that. So there wasn't shipping. There are shipping options. And again, it's really something you have to look at. I will say, I am not a fan of shipping things because I had a very bad experience. When I moved to Honduras, the school that I was working for paid to ship 2 boxes, 200 pounds of stuff for me. So I, not knowing anything about how to pack things to ship, I was given no instructions other than, like call FedEx or UPS or somebody like that. Everything I shipped in those boxes arrived damaged, broken beyond use. And here's the thing, it's not even that my stuff got beat up getting to Honduras. Literally, I think UPS picked it up. Or was it FedEx? I can't remember. They picked it up, and I think it fell off of one of their trucks while it was still in Texas. They just scooped my stuff up off the street, put it back in the box, taped the box up, and sent it on to Honduras. So after that experience, I have very much been of the mind, if it doesn't come on the plane with me, it does not go. Um, I think it's one of those things, like if you've got lots of money to pay a top-notch company to ensure that your stuff arrives undamaged and in the condition in which you packed it, you can go for that. But again, weigh the cost of what are you paying to bring it with you versus how much is it actually worth. I think for some people that will make sense. I think for the majority of people, it's not going to make sense. How did you bring your sewing machine with you or did I buy it here? Okay, this is actually my second sewing machine because my first one I shipped to Honduras and they broke it. It was damaged this was a sewing machine I had been given by my mother as a wedding gift. So it was a sewing machine I'd had for like 20 some years. It got to Honduras and it was broken. So I bought a very cheap one to use in Honduras that I eventually gave to my youngest daughter. And then when I left Honduras to come to Mexico, when I first moved here in 2017, I started looking and thinking about, I don't know where in the world I will be living. I wanted something lightweight because after that lesson, I knew my sewing machine would be coming with me on the plane. It's usually my carry-on. The dog, those are usually my carry-ons. And so I also opted to get a manual machine instead of a digital one because if I was in a country with different voltage, or if something broke on it, I figured sewing machines have been around long enough that if it was a manual one, I could get it repaired anywhere versus if it was an electronic one. So this is the second one, actually. Okay. All right. So we were talking about things before the move. We were talking about, stocking up on medications, spices, hair care products, clothes. Do you need to get new clothes for the environment that you're moving to? Is the place or the places, if you're a digital nomad, where you're going, what's the voltage? What do the plugs look like? Because although most laptops and cell phones are dual voltage and do not require a converter, plugs look different in a lot of countries. So if you don't already have converters and adapters, that's something you got to spend a little money on. Um, what are you going to do for your mail? When I first moved out of the US, I had a mail forwarding service. Like I got an address. That was my address, but it was really a box. Um, and they would scan my mail and send me an email with the scan. That that's going to be at least $9 a month. And so if you're planning to keep a service up like that for a year, 2 years, 3 years, you need to figure that into your cost. That's not something a lot of people think of. I no longer have that service because I get virtually no mail. And the little bit of mail I did get that needed somebody's attention, I would then have to have them mail it to my cousin's house. So I just cut out the middleman and I use my cousin's address. So I save that money now. Mail forwarding. What about cell phone? If you're going to be a digital nomad or you're going to be an expat and live outside the United States, you really need an unlocked phone. I have a dual SIM unlocked phone. That way I can keep my Google Fi SIM for my US number in the phone, as well as the local SIM for whatever country I'm in. So right now in my phone, I have a Mexican SIM and I have my Google Fi SIM. I can receive and make calls on both numbers from one phone. But if you don't already have a dual unlocked phone, that's an added expense. Are you going to have to get paid to get out of a cell phone contract when you leave? That may be an added expense, especially if you were financing the phone that you were using and it's not one that you own. Will you have to pay them back? That's something to think about. And then probably the last and quite possibly one of the most expensive pre-move things to think about. Do you already have a passport? If you don't, that's going to cost you, what is it, $140 for the passport? Plus, if you pay to get the pictures done, that could be anywhere from $15 to $30. Or you can do like me and take them on your cell phone and print them out as CVS, much cheaper. Do you have to pay for a visa? Are there visa application fees for the countries that you're going to? This one, I think some people forget about, especially people with US passports, because there are so many places that we can go as tourists without applying for a visa. If you're going on a tourist visa, is there an application or a fee or anything like that? Or if you're applying for a longer term visa, how much is that? How much paperwork is associated with it? Do you have to get documents either authenticated or attested for your visa? I had to do that for my work visa in Kuwait, and I also had to do it for my work visa in China, and that was not cheap. That was not cheap. So I'm talking about in the hundreds of dollars to get the various documents authenticated or attested. Whichever process you have to do depends on the country that you're going to. Also, if you are moving abroad with minor children or you're married, things like birth certificates and marriage certificates, it's a good idea to get those authenticated, possibly even translated from an official translator, so that when you have to prove relationships and that kind of stuff in your new country, it's easier to do. Okay. I see a question here about dual SIM. Inside my phone, there is literally a spot for 2 SIM cards. And what I can do is I can turn a SIM card on or off. I can, for the phone that I have, and I have a Motorola, I think a G7. I used to have a G4, so I assume the entire G line is dual SIM. I can tell it like, these phone numbers assigned to my Google Fi SIM, these phone numbers assigned to my Mexican SIM, or I can let it determine. I can say, use this SIM for phone calls, use this SIM for data. I think it's the greatest thing in the world. And I think anybody living an international life should have a dual SIM phone. I think There are some that have a virtual second SIM. I don't know how that works because I've never had a phone like that. But since I left 5 years ago, what was the brand? Blue, BLU. I had two different ones. I'm hard on cell phones, y'all. I had two different blues, and then I had two different Motorola's, and I just cracked the screen on my Motorola last week. So yeah, I'm tough on phones. Okay. All right. Um, did I buy my G7 from Mexico? Actually, no. This is what happened. The G4 I bought when I was in Mexico, when I lived here 4 years ago, because I was riding public transportation, which can be very, very crowded, and my phone fell on the ground and was run over by a bus. Okay. I had a backup. I had one of my old blues as my backup. And so I needed a new phone, got on Amazon, Mexico, found this motor. I was like, unlocked dual SIM phones, had never considered a Motorola, got the G4. I used that G4 in Mexico, in Kuwait, and in China. And then there is obviously a limit to how many times you can drop a phone before it stops working. And so the Christmas time, November, December, right before the pandemic started, my G4 died. And I could, I was in China. I could easily buy a really awesome, kick-ass cell phone, except I would never be able to use it with Google products once I left China because, Google is illegal in China. So what I did was I ordered on Amazon and had them ship the G7 to a friend's house in London because for Chinese New Year, I was going to be in Europe. So I picked it up in Europe, came back and used it in China and have been using it since. So I've had the G7 since late 2019, early 2020. You can probably buy a Motorola G here in Mexico. Because I've not run into any issues with like finding those kinds of phones here in Mexico. Renee H has a question. I owe some back taxes in the US. Will that interrupt a residency in another country? It depends on the country. Is it a country that requires some kind of financial statement or something like that from your home country? So like when I moved to Kuwait and when I moved to China, I had to have a background check. And then there are some countries, I want to say, I know somebody who lives in South Africa. I think she had to do some kind of a credit check there. So I think it really depends on the country that you are moving to and whether or not that has been listed, whether or not they check credit. Mexico really doesn't. Mexico is muy flexible here in Mexico. All right. So that we've covered the costs you get or you need to think about before you move. During the move, obviously airfare, bag fees. Again, this is one that came to bite me in the butt. We assume that with an international flight, you get 2 free check bags, and that was the standard for a really long time. But what I learned last year was it depends on where you are flying from and where you are flying to. So I moved back to Mexico from China in July of 2020. From China to the US, I had 3 check bags. So 2 of them was included in the price of my flight. I had to pay extra for the 3rd bag. That's why I say when you think about how many bags you're committing to traveling with, there are certain costs that you will incur. So every time I move a country, I have to think about not only what my flight costs, but what's that extra bag going to cost me. But here's the thing. Because I flew from China to the US and from the US to Mexico, on United, flying from the US to Mexico is not considered an international flight. So they only included 1 bag in the cost of my ticket. So I had to ante up money for the third bag, and then I had to pay extra for my second bag because it was not included on my flight from Texas to Mexico. That really pissed me off. I that was unexpected, and I didn't really care for it. Okay. The luggage that I bought it from the Container Store. I don't know if they still sell it because that was like 5 years ago. But they are often called soft-sided trunks, or they are called deployment bags. If you go on, I hate to say go on Amazon because I don't want to give Jeff Bezos any money, but if you were to Google deployment bag, you could see a picture of what it looks like. If I need to receive important snail mail documents in Mexico, how does it work? It doesn't. Mexico has a postal system. I see the Correos de Mexico people out every day delivering mail, but it's not very dependable. If somebody needed to send me something, like right now, I ordered a t-shirt a month ago, and it should have showed up a week ago. It didn't. The online tracking for it stopped 2 weeks ago. So if somebody needed to send me something, I would tell them send it DHL. If there was an important document or something, like, let's say my ATM card got eaten up and I needed them to send me a new one, I would have it sent to me with DHL. That is the most dependable way to go. I have heard people who have had great luck who use the Mexican postal system for their business. But then on the other hand, I've heard people talk about, like, yeah, we have to mail Christmas cards 3 months early in order for them to get where we want them to go on time. So mail is not the most dependable here. So we talked about airfare, baggage fees, shipping. Okay. Now, another option, I told y'all, I am very pro, it needs to be on the plane with me because that way I know it arrives in one piece. Baggage fees, for example, like Delta is $200 for the extra bag. An overweight bag, so if you're in economy, you get 50 pounds, 23 kilograms in a bag. Let's say your bag is 55 pounds. Instead of being a $200 bag, that's now a $350, $400 bag. Overweight baggage is not where it's at. It is often cheaper just to pack a third bag versus paying for overweight baggage. Another option, there are companies like Send My Bag, where you pack things in a suitcase. You tell them, this is the country. A lot of teachers, a lot of international school teachers use this because they're moving between countries, and often schools aren't paying to do that. So like a service like Send My Bag, and there are some other ones, will take a suitcase or a large box, and they will ship it from one address to another. That is more affordable, I have found, than somebody like DHL or FedEx. Like I told y'all, I had 2 boxes shipped for me to Honduras. To get what I paid, and I was reimbursed by the school, but what I paid to ship 2 boxes to Honduras, it would have cost me more than that to send one box, much smaller, out of Honduras. It was like $500 for a box that weighed like 20 pounds. So shipping, I say, unless somebody else is paying for it, try to avoid it. Something else to consider about your during the trip expenses. Now, in the world we live in, how many COVID tests are you going to have to pay for? Are you going to have to be tested before you enter the country, when you get there? And then are you going to have to pay for quarantine? That needs to be a part of your financial plan as well. Somebody I know on IG just got back to China, and she's doing 2 weeks in a quarantine hotel. And I think it's $850 for the quarantine hotel. And that includes the cost of the nasal swab test that they're doing there, but her job is going to reimburse that. If you are moving independently, you're a digital nomad, those are costs you need to consider. Okay. And then transportation to and from the airport. Like when I moved to Honduras, I sold my car to CarMax across the street. But then it was like, well, how do I get home? And how am I going to get to the airport now that I don't have a car? So you need to factor that in. And then on the other end, when you land, how are you getting from the airport with however many bags you've brought with you? I kid y'all not. There was a woman who moved to Mexico City with 28 checked bags. I don't even know how you get through the airport with that many bags. I don't know how you get from the airport to your lodging with that many bags, but that's something to think about. If you are bringing a certain number of bags with you that you absolutely have to have, you need to figure out, am I going to need an Uber Black? Am I going to need a van? How much extra is that going to cost? Then, of course, travel insurance. Now, a lot of people are like, why would I get travel insurance? I'm not going to not go and move to this country. It's not about you. It's about what the airline is doing, what your hotel is doing. Y'all remember just a few weeks ago, all of those hundreds of cancellations of flights from American and Spirit. If people did not have travel insurance, whatever subsequent flights they missed, they were out of that money. If the airline didn't put them up in a hotel, that's where the travel insurance kicks in. So even though you might just be leaving the US and moving to Colombia, you still should have travel insurance on that trip. And then, of course, food. Depending how far you're moving, like it may be a couple of days involved. And how many hours are you spending in airports? Are you going to eat? How much? Because airport food is ridiculously expensive. All right, so let me check the comments. What about those with sizable student loan debt? Pamela Jones, I just did a video last week on moving abroad with student loans. Did you not see that? Oh, do I have a link? Let me see if I can get y'all a link. Oh, I don't think I can. Yeah, I just did a video literally I think it was Tuesday, on how to move abroad with student loans, the different way to make them affordable. When I talk about don't move abroad with debt, I am not talking about student loan debt. I am talking about like credit cards, maybe you financed your living room set. I don't know. Here is a link to the video on moving abroad with student loans. It is very possible, if you are living outside the US and you qualify for the foreign earned income exemption and you do the income-based repayment, your payments are basically $0. So yeah, student loans should not stop you from moving abroad. Let's see. Do you use a credit card for purchases or stick with cash? It depends on the country. Hard lesson I learned, because I have, before I moved to China, I've been other places. And so part of the reason I was comfortable going to China with like $92 in my pocket was like, I have credit cards, except they don't take credit cards in China. I was blown away. I understand that like little small mom and pop places won't take them, but like literally you cannot pay with credit cards. That is not a way to pay for things. You either pay for things with cash or you use your phone with WeChat or Alipay. And so I was SOL because my plan until I got my first Chinese paycheck was just to float things I needed on my credit card, except they couldn't take them. Here in Mexico, credit cards are accepted, except if I'm buying something from a street vendor, that needs to be cash. If it's a very small, very, very small place, that needs to be cash. But there are the vast majority. I could easily go through my daily life and never use cash here in Mexico. Um, I could totally do it all on not Christmas, all on credit cards. Joan says she got Christmas and Kwanzaa cards in March. If they were mailed with Correos de Mexico, that sounds about right. Okay, I have two work computers, which I'm trying to decide whether to ship or bring on the plane with us. Okay, that's going to depend on the country. And again, I told y'all I want my stuff with me so that if it's broken, it's my fault. It's not some stranger's fault. But here's the other thing. In some of the Mexican airports, people are starting to get slapped with taxes because you're like allowed to bring in a laptop for personal use. But some people are bringing in their laptop and their desktop, and the authorities are searching their bags and saying, oh, that desktop, we need to tax you on that. So I've never had that happen to me, but that does happen. Shipping my car to Mexico. My advice on shipping your car to Mexico, don't. First of all, are you going to be here as a tourist or a temporary resident or a permanent resident? Because that will impact your life with your car here. And can you have that car here? Everybody I have talked to who who's brought a car to Mexico has regretted it. Especially if you're going to be here long term. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, when I being Nirel said having $100 to my name will stress me out. I knew like I was temporarily poor. Like I didn't have cash, but I had money electronically. It was just I couldn't access any of that money. So I ate a lot of granola bars that month until I got paid. Okay, so we've covered what are the expenses you are likely to encounter before you move and that you need to plan for. We've talked about what are the expenses during the actual move while you are in transit from one country to another. And again, like I said, if you are a digital nomad, those in that second category, those costs will repeat literally every time you move to a new location. Then the last category of, or no, not the last. So I'm looking at my notes. Okay. Yeah. After your move, so you've arrived in your new country, what are the things you are going to need cash for? Really, there's no way around this. You will need cash. Probably your temporary housing. So once you hit the ground, where are you staying? If you've watched any video on this channel about moving abroad, you know I think it is a very bad idea to arrange long-term housing sight unseen. Okay. The last live I did 2 weeks ago with Asia Marie, who moved with her son to Puerto Vallarta, she actually did book her house ahead of time. And we discussed why I thought that was a bad idea. And she talked about why she knows that generally that's a bad idea, but she did it anyway, why it worked out for her. But so you need short-term housing. Are you going to stay at a hotel? Or are you going to stay at a hostel? A lot of people don't think about that, but that is one way to cut costs. Even if you're traveling with a pet, it's something I considered when I moved back to Mexico last year, because I basically gave myself 1 week to find an apartment. And there were quite a few hostels that allowed pets. The only reason I didn't go that route, other than it being a pandemic, was I kept thinking about, I've got these 3 big suitcases. How am I going to store those securely in a hostel? I didn't think it was possible. So I opted to do Airbnb for a week. So you need to pay for that. Are there visa costs that you will have once you arrive in the country? I am here on a residence visa, so I paid a certain amount to initiate the process in the US to get approval. But then when you get here to Mexico, and this is another thing that came up in my conversation with Asia on the last live, is to finish the visa process. There was I'm not going to say a significant outlay of money. For example, to get your visa in the US for Mexico, your residency visa is like about $40. Once you get here, if you're going to do a 1-year visa, it's a couple of $100. So it's more than what you pay in the US. Is it super, super expensive? No. But if it's you and a spouse and a kid and you haven't thought about that, that can add a significant amount to your budget. Something else to think about once you get into the country you're in, how are you going to access your money in your accounts, your bank accounts back home? If you are making money in your new country, so if you are living in Mexico and you're being paid in pesos, or if you're in China and you're being paid in yuan, how are you going to get that money out of the country? Some countries that is easier to do. In other countries, it is a pain in the ass. China is one of those countries. So I'm pretty sure I got screwed over big time because when I lived in China, I worked for a Canadian company. So my salary was in Canadian dollars. They paid me in Chinese yuan, but then I needed to send it to the US. So I'm pretty sure I got screwed out of a lot of money. But I had to pay to send my money from China to the US because the way I used to do it for super cheap or free in Kuwait and Honduras did not work in China. So yeah, how is it going to cost you to access your money? If all your money's in the US and you're going to be using ATMs around the world, please make sure that you have a bank account that gives you rebated ATM fees, doesn't charge you international fees, doesn't charge you currency conversion fees like Fidelity, Schwab, USAA, somebody like that. As you are getting permanent or long-term housing, remember, they're going to expect the first month's rent. There's probably going to be at least 1 month's rent deposit. Depending on the country, there may be additional costs. For example, here in Mexico, specifically in Mexico City, they want you to, if you don't have a cosigner, you need to get an insurance policy. My insurance policy was like 6,000 pesos, about $300. So I had to pay the first month's rent, I had to pay a deposit, and I had to pay for the insurance policy. So all of that money I had to come out of within the first 2 weeks that I moved to Mexico. Okay, let's see. So yeah, so and here it is very common if you don't have a cosigner, an aval, they will say, okay, well, you can pay me 3 months of rent up front. You can pay me a year of rent up front. Like, so depending on the country, there's the potential that you might have to come out quite a bit of money in cash up front to get housing. So that's something to figure into your financial plan when you're looking to go abroad. Are you going to get a furnished place, or are you going to have to buy furniture? I had always vowed that I would always live in a furnished apartment. And then the pandemic hit and I was looking for apartments here in Mexico City, and nothing I was finding furnished was in my budget and aesthetically pleasing. And because we're in a pandemic and we can be locked down at any moment, I needed the space I lived in to like feel like the kind of space I want to spend time in. So I had to furnish it. So immediately after moving in and having to pay for the rental insurance policy, And that policy doesn't cover me. It really insured my landlord that if in case I didn't pay the rent, he would still get some money. So I paid that, I paid a deposit, and I paid rent. Then I had to turn around and get a refrigerator, and I had to get a couch and a washing machine. The washing machine, I guess you could say I didn't have to get, because there are plenty of laundry spots around, but I didn't want strange people doing my laundry. So I needed a washing machine. And so that money, it didn't have to be cash, because I got like the refrigerator from Home Depot and the washing machine from Best Buy. But that was still money I had to come off of in less than a month of getting here. Okay. Where you're moving, are you going to have to pay to connect utilities or transfer utilities over? Here in Mexico, nobody transfers utilities over. The bills will never have my name on them, but I do need to pay them, but they aren't very expensive. Of course, you need money to eat. Health insurance. We are living in a pandemic, y'all. You really need to have some kind of health insurance, something. And I did a video about the health insurance that I have here in Mexico. But there are lots of options, and I'll put that link in the chat, and I'll put that link in the description as well. So if you need to get health insurance, that's another cost. And then, what was the last one? Oh yeah, you need oh shit money. If you watch my other video on, budgeting and how to, what kind of bank accounts you need, you know that I quantify all of my money into 4 categories. There's your FU money, there is your oh yeah money, there's your oh well money, and then there's your oh shit money. You need to make sure that you have money that in case this new place you get to ain't it, do you have money to fly somewhere else? Or you get to the accommodation and that accommodation sucks, do you have money to go somewhere else? I'll tell you, when I first moved to Mexico in 2017, the Airbnb, I did the stupidest thing, rookie move. I booked the Airbnb for the whole month. And when you book long-term with Airbnb, you can get your money back except for the first 30 days. And I mean, technically, I had the oh shit money that I could have stayed somewhere else, but I didn't want to walk away from that money. So I had to thug it out for a month in an apartment that was not cool. So yeah, make sure that you have some cash set aside or a way to either pay for new housing if you need it, pay for transportation to another country, that if this is not this is not working, you can get out. Thank you, Wendy, for the, I forget what you even call that. What do you call that? When people give you money on YouTube? I don't know. I can't, the word is not coming to my head, but thank you, Wendy. I will use that to buy a hot chocolate. I think you also might be the first person to ever give me one of those. Okay, so let me go back through the comments. Okay. I would need a second monitor. Should I bring that with me or buy it when I get where I'm going? It depends where you are going. Is it Saint for Willow? Like here in Mexico, electronics cost significantly more. Everything here has IVA, a 16% tax on it. I don't know if that's the reason why things cost more, or if it's just they cost more in Mexico plus there's a tax. So it depends. It depends. And it also depends on where are you going afterward. So for instance, I did not, when I was in China, because the plugs are different, because the voltage is different, I didn't want to spend any real money on electronics, because I was like, the part of the world I'm going to next, if I need to take this electronic with me, I'm going to need like a up converter or a step converter. So it depends. It really depends. The primary thing I think about is cost and availability. If you're going someplace where you know you can't get it or it's going to be stupid expensive, then yeah, bring it with you. Let's see. Who negotiated with the landlord? Helena? Did you do that with limited Spanish? Yes, I did. Okay. Now, full transparency. When I moved to Mexico the first time in 2017, this is after a year of living in Honduras, I still didn't have enough Spanish to really negotiate rent and that sort of thing. And so what I learned was when you're walking around and you see the signs at the number, I would put those numbers in my phone and then go to WhatsApp and see if they were a cell phone. And if they were a WhatsApp number, I would text in Spanish using Google Translate. If not, I met a lady here. She was Honduran living in Mexico and kind of took me under her wing because she was like, oh, you used to live in my country. And so for places I could not text, I would send her the number and be like, can you ask them how much the rent is, that sort of thing. This time around, I pretty much did the same thing. Every appointment to see an apartment, and y'all, I gave myself a week. So from the time I landed, I was scheduling showings and that kind of thing. I did all that texting in Spanish. And when I got there, I spoke in Spanish as much as I could. And then when they realized that I couldn't speak, I wasn't that good at Spanish, there was somebody around who spoke English. But from the beginning, I always try to start in Spanish because I don't want them to know that I'm a foreigner, because I don't want to pay foreigner prices. Let's see. Oh, wait, I feel like I scrolled past something that I missed. Maybe I didn't. I'm not using, normally I use StreamYard, and this time I'm just using straight YouTube. So it's a little different. That's why I can't pull the comments up here. Okay. How much am I allowed? Pamela wants to know how much you're allowed to draw from an ATM to pay your permanent housing. Okay. That depends on two things: how much your bank at home will let you take out and how much the bank whose ATM you're using. So like BBVA, they will only allow you to take 9,300 pesos out of their ATMs. But Banorte, I've taken 11,000 pesos out of their ATM. So it depends. You can continue. So like I could go to a BBVA and I could go to a Banorte ATM as long as I don't try to bypass what my home bank's limit is. So usually, like my landlord told me straight up, he did not want to be paid electronically because he's not trying to pay tax. So he comes to pick up the rent in cash. But that means I have to plan ahead and make sure I have at least 2 different days to go to the bank on so that I can pull out enough money. Let's see. What will I do with the furniture if I decide to move? That's an excellent question. If I am somewhere in Mexico City or Mexico, I can get a mover. That's not complicated. If I leave Mexico altogether, basically I would sell in the foreigner Facebook groups. So like this room I'm in now, this is like my sewing room / guest room. The bed I got in here, that's how I found it. Because Mexico City is a place where there's constantly new people coming to the city. And that's what happened when I left before. I sold some things because I was moving to Kuwait. I knew they wouldn't work there. So in the expat groups, it's generally easy to sell your stuff, depending on what your stuff is. And so that also colors how I buy things. If I'm going to buy something, it either has to be something I'm really in need of and going to use, that I'm okay with. I may lose money on this because you can't resell it for full price. So if it's something that maybe I want, but I don't think will resell well, I may opt not to buy it. But that is something in the back of my mind all the time. If you are slow traveling and only staying 2 to 3 months, does that apply? Should you just do Airbnb? Um, Normally I would say do Airbnb, but what I've noticed lately is everybody is complaining about Airbnb fees. And so what they are really looking, Mexico City is a hard place to do short-term rentals. Other places in Mexico, especially places that get lots of tourists, foreigners, in Asia, in Southeast Asia, like if you're in Vietnam, renting a place month to month or saying, I want a 3 month lease, that's not a big deal. Here in Mexico City, people don't want to, they don't get down like that. I think it's primarily because here, I think renters and squatters have a lot of rights. So, like, if you get somebody in your apartment and they don't want to pay, it's really hard on you to get them out. That's one of the reasons why so many landlords either require the insurance policy or they want a co-signer. So, I think for most places, Airbnb, vacation rentals by owner, or you just like what is it, Facebook Marketplace, you can easily put out there, hey, I'm looking, you make a post, tell them who you are, I'm looking for a place to rent for 2 to 3 months. That is much easier done in places other than Mexico City. So I think that's fine. Super chat, thank y'all. I could not remember that. Thank you, Wendy Cooper, for the super chat. I could not remember that word. Okay. Hey, Sheeta, we were talking about you earlier. Okay. So, so we covered your pre-move expenses, the expenses during your move, and we talked about post-move. Now, as you are creating your financial plan, how are you going to fund these expenses? Is it, and this is going to vary by person. Is it from the regular gig that you have? Do you make enough money that, like, yeah, in excess of your other financial responsibilities, you can use that money that you're earning to pay for these things? Or, if your goal is to really get rid of your credit card debt before you move abroad, do you need to pick up a side hustle? Now, I almost feel funny even saying that, because if you've been on this channel long enough, you know how I feel about hustle culture and this, we got to work all the time. Ugh. But maybe to achieve a short-term goal, like I need to get out of this debt so I can make my move abroad, maybe a side hustle is the way to go. As you are downsizing and, preparing for your move, selling the things that you own can provide a lot of that. When I was making my move to Honduras, I got rid of a lot of the things I sold. I then left all that money. Like, I sold a lot of stuff on Amazon, believe it or not. And then when I was ready to go, I left everything on Amazon, like I didn't have them deposited in my bank account. And then I used that money to buy my dual SIM unlocked phone. So selling your stuff, depending on what you own, depending on where you are, that may be a way to fund this. When you're in your new country, is your existing work gig going to fund the stuff that you're doing there? Are you going to be living off of savings until you get to a place where you can, find work or continue with your business? So that's something, not just to focus on, these are the things I have to spend money on, but where am I going to get that money? And what can I do to get that money? So that, I think, is, part of the total plan. Okay. Do y'all have any other questions about the move abroad process, about the financial piece of the move abroad process? Because like I told y'all at the beginning, there are some people who would say, I need $45,000 to move abroad. And then there are some people who are like, I got 1,000 and I like had to bust my ass to get this $1,000, and that's going to have to make it, depending on the lifestyle that you live, and how you want to live. If you are going to be a digital nomad and you're primarily going to be staying in hostels and working in cafes, you don't need as much money as somebody who really wants to. Part of their reason for moving abroad is to elevate their lifestyle. That is going to be, a different amount of money for them. So I've been here a little bit over an hour. If you've got a question, y'all, you got me here live. This would be the time to ask the question and get your answer. So, is travel insurance and health insurance the same, or do you get travel insurance until you get settled and then get health insurance? It depends. This is a pet peeve of mine because there does not appear to be any authority governing what these things are called. Generally speaking, if something is called travel insurance, and by the way, y'all, don't ever, like, you're booking a flight and the airline is like, hey, do you want to insure this flight? Don't get insurance with the airline. Let's think about, what is their motivation? Who are they looking out for? Are they looking out for you, or are they looking out for themselves? Because I can almost guarantee you get an airline's insurance, they're going to find lots of ways not to pay. So travel insurance is going to cover problems or issues that happen with your trip. Like if a flight is missed, a flight is delayed, if your baggage is lost, those kinds of things. So like these people who got stuck out with American and Spirit, because their flights were canceled, they then missed days of hotels that they had paid for. They missed the excursions. Your travel insurance would cover that. Now, there is something called travel health insurance, or you may have travel insurance that you can then add health insurance pieces to. I would say, and also the thing about travel insurance, if you are like setting up yourself in a country for an extended period of time, it's really hard because a lot of travel insurance companies limit the length of a trip. They won't let you take a trip for 6 months. Okay, so that part kind of depends. So you want travel insurance to cover the transportation piece of it. You do need something that is going to cover healthcare costs, unless you are going someplace where paying out of pocket is like peanuts and ice water. But remember, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I would not want to be anywhere without health insurance during a pandemic. And so that specifically is kind of like travel, like global health insurance, international health insurance. And I'm giving you these names, and a company may call it that or not. But what you need to look at is, what are they covering? Will they cover illnesses? Like if I need to go to the doctor, I need to be admitted to the hospital, I have a scooter accident and I knock out 4 of my teeth. Are they going to cover that? That might be part of your travel insurance, but again, you might be limited on how long they will cover you. Safety Wing, and I mentioned this I think I mentioned this in the video I did about the private insurance that I have here in Mexico. Safety Wing, they like specialize for digital nomads, and they even have a little bit of coverage, not a lot, but they do have some. But then if you're going to be bouncing from one place to another, what you really want is global health insurance, something that will cover you in just about any country you're in. Usually, if you want them to cover you in the United States as well, you're gonna have to pay a little extra for that. But if you are settling in one place, another option could be local private health insurance there, which is what I have here in Mexico. Will I keep that? I don't know. I'll see when the year is up how I feel about it. I hope that answered your question, Pamela. How are COVID concerns in Mexico City? Mexico City was probably the worst hit in all of Mexico because I mean, you got a pandemic and there's 20 million people. So it's going to be bad here. It was really bad in January. As of right now, y'all heard me talk about Mexico has a stoplight system with green being 100% open, red being really bad, and you should be on lockdown. We are officially orange. However, this time around with orange, we have no restrictions. There was a big controversy last week and the week before because the country Mexico said, no, Mexico City, you're red. And the government in Mexico City was like, no, what you talking about? We're orange. But either way, we're not going to put any restrictions in. So people are wearing their masks, people are being vaccinated, but Delta is everywhere. So that's what the COVID situation is here. Uh, is it true that you need at least 1 year at your job to get temporary residency? I saw it on the financial solvency list online and never hear anyone mentioning it. You'll find that anything you ask about Mexico, always the answer is it depends. um, each consulate can interpret the rules how they see fit. And Rashida did a video about her experience in Miami, which was very different than my experience. I have applied for a residency visa in Houston and in New Orleans. So the consulate you go to, generally speaking, they want to see either 6 to 12 months of bank statements that show systematic deposits or that you've had this amount in savings for 6 to 12 months. A consulate may interpret that to mean you need to have been at this job for a year, or they may interpret that to mean we just need to see bank statements for a year. It just depends. Let's see. If I have a remote job to travel, I don't want to have to wait a whole year. It's what, Tony, what I would suggest is to get into some of the expat groups for Mexico and ask a question about their experience with the which consulate did they go to when they applied for their temporary residency, and how did they have to prove their financial solvency. And then you can find out which consulates are a little bit more friendly to your situation. Okay. Is there another city you would live in Mexico besides the capital? I have been asking myself that question and I don't have an answer yet. Because y'all know, I love Mexico City. However, it is expensive compared to the rest of the country. So I keep thinking in the back of my head, you could really lower your cost of living if you live somewhere else. But so far, it appears that my quality of life might suffer as well. So I don't know. I'm always looking for another potential place to stay in Mexico, but so far I don't have an answer. Let's see. Yeah, Miami is a no-go. I don't know. The first time I went to Houston, they were fine. The second time I went to Houston, me and old girl by had words because I'm literally showing her on my phone the verbiage on their website, and she's telling me that's not what that means, which is why I ended up going to New Orleans. So, like I said, it depends. Let's see. Yes, consulate staff change frequently. So who you saw the last time may not be who you get the next time. Okay. I think I think that's the last question, y'all. I think so. So, oh, I almost forgot. Aha. We've been sitting here talking about money. And as y'all know, this month on my YouTube channel, the whole focus has been on money and financial confidence, because I firmly believe that the average person does not need to hire a financial advisor or a financial planner, because really where the gap lies is in financial education. Like, we don't know the things about money so that we're comfortable. And as part of that, I am doing what I call like a financial confidence boot camp next month. It's a 4 or 5 week program to teach you the things about money so that you are confident taking control of your own money and your own destiny, because that's really what I'm about over here. So I am going to drop a link if you want, if that sounds interesting to you and you want more information. Ooh, I don't know. I just pasted something in, and I pasted something in and it wasn't what I thought I had copied. So let me try that again. Okay. I highlighted too much. That's why I was confused. All right. So, if you want to get information about when the Financial Confidence Bootcamp opens, I dropped a link in here for you to get on the mailing list for that. I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to say before we were done. We talked about that. I put a link in there for the um, move abroad checklist. Oh, the other thing, because I see several several folks in the comments who have met with me and are well on their way to moving abroad. If you would rather like one-on-one time with me, you can book that as well. There are a variety of sessions, some like 1 hour, some like 3 hours. Did you miss the reunion? I don't know what reunion we talking about. So yes. So Lady Chick Fashion, be my financial advisor. I'm very knowledgeable. Y'all know I am an educator at heart. See, so I want to share my knowledge with y'all and empower you to take control of your finances. I don't think you need somebody else telling you what to do. So that's the whole idea behind the Financial Confidence Bootcamp. Is when you are done with it's short. It's only 4 weeks, because you know some courses tend to be really longer. 4 weeks, you go through boot camp, you will know your stuff so that you are confident enough to take control of your finances. Okay. I'll look here one more time. All right, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. If you're watching this in the replay, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see y'all later. Bye.